Well, we're going to start off here with our webinar. It's Smart Music for Marching Band and do our master class. Really glad to have Mike Omarzu and Rob Stein with us. And we have over 129 that registered for this session, and we're going to take some questions along the way. But to get us started, we just want to let you know who's in the room, so to speak. So your hosts are Dr. Giovanna Cruz and Lee Callisted. And Giovanna, do you want to just say a quick word about who you are and how you got here?
Yes, sure. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here. My name is Giovanna Cruz, and I am a cellist. I was a high school orchestra teacher for 7 years in Austin, Texas, and I use SmartMusic with all my students. Very little, if or no experience with marching band, but a lot of experience teaching strings. And so I was hired out of the classroom about 3 years ago to work for Make Music alongside with Lee, and we do clinics and webinars, trainings, and go around the country to music educator conference shows. And we also have some e-learning. So thank you for being here. I'll be taking your questions too.
Yeah, Giovanna will be handling questions. We'll get into how to send those chatting over to her. And my name's Lee, and I taught for a very long time. And I was a wannabe marching band because I was in a small school, but I didn't get things sorted out the way our guests did today. But I'm hoping that they'll share some great thoughts with you, and we want to go into that right away. Just want to be clear, while this show isn't meant to be a Smart Music commercial, Smart Music is the topic of how Mike and Rob got their things planned. And they were doing it in SmartMusic Classic, which is an application that goes on your computer. And you sometimes are at the mercy of tracking down your IT person. And the things that they're talking about now, you can also do in new SmartMusic, which is web-based. And so just Classic or looking at new, then you have all these topics that are going to work for you. Again, here's just a little look at the Classic if you're doing that. And this is what the interface looks like on new, where the content boxes are on the right, classes and assignments on the left. Just a little quick mention about Mike, who's our first guest here. He's been teaching for 26 years. He's at Western Dubuque High School, where apparently he does every possible group that you could do in a school and outside of the school. And been taking his groups all over the place and using SmartMusic to help get them ready. And we were talking a little bit earlier that one of the things that impressed me about Mike is that he doesn't have a huge staff of people. It's Mike and a couple of people that he arm twisted to help out with things. And so, Mike, could you just take us through a little bit of either what's on the page here or other things, just kind of a little quick hello, and then we'll interrogate you in just a couple minutes after that.
Well, hello, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, you said I teach in Iowa. In Iowa, we have 4 classes of bands, schools by size, and I'm in the biggest class, but I'm the smallest band or smallest school in the biggest class. And we've done a lot of traveling, and we do a lot of marching band activities, and we really enjoy marching band.
So we're gonna have Mike tee up some processes of what he's been doing and how he's been doing it, and just a little bit, a couple of views here. Here's a picture of his group in a parade, and then I believe this looks like maybe at a festival or contest thing, and so we'll look forward to getting some tips from Mike in just a minute. That brings us to Rob Stein, and Rob is kind of a as I understand it, visiting with Rob started out doing the things that Mike was doing, but then transitioned into writing all these arrangements. And you notice at the bottom here, he's toured with the Blue Devils, the Cadets, Jersey Surf, and he's been writing charts. So Rob, if you could just say hi, and then we'll get into this discussion in just a second. And then just a little housekeeping. Mike and Rob, when you aren't on the hot seat talking here, just mute yourself out, otherwise your picture pops up as there's a sound. So Rob, why don't you kind of fill in some gaps here for us?
Hello, everyone. This is Rob. Yes, Lee is correct. I started out as a elementary and general elementary and elementary and middle school band teacher for 10 years. I worked in a few different districts. The most recent was Clinton Public School in Clinton, New Jersey. I was there for 5 years. And in grad school, I started standing O marching, just writing for 2 bands. And this year, 11 years later, I had about 65 bands, and I just finished my first year going full time with Standing O after 10 wonderful years in the public teaching workforce. It's been a blast, and I'm looking forward to being here and sharing some more info.
Super. And I just put up just a couple of the pages on that website. It's a great website, and I was pretty impressed when I looked at all the people that you've been writing for that are clients, and some big names there. So that's quite a transition from starting out teaching middle school to writing for some of the best groups in the country. So that's we're looking forward to some more of that story. So we're going to pull it back to Mike here and kind of turn the ball over to Mike about just kind of whatever he wants to tell you about the history. What I'm really interested in is how you use SmartMusic with the marching band. We'll do a file of his. And then what effect did SmartMusic have on the marching band? Just kind of what tips would you have and what process worked? And with that, Mike, why don't you go ahead and take some comments here?
For marching band, I write the music for the shows using Finale. And once I found out that you could put Finale files into SmartMusic files, I was really thrilled that we could do that. And now what I do is whenever I get the music done as soon as possible, I put that into the SmartMusic files, and then the kids can use that to rehearse, or they can also practice with it. Sometimes I give a graded assignment, sometimes I don't. I just think it's a great advantage for them to be able to hear their parts or hear how it goes with some other parts. And sometimes I even break it down into sections, like I'll make it just one section's recording, have them do that.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, Mike, was obviously you prepared for concert bands and other types of groups, performing groups at the school. How is it different to get a marching band ready? Because they obviously can't be wandering around the field trying to learn their parts. I would think they'd have to, be ready to go when they step on the field. And so how did you get that approach going with your kids?
Well, we know right when school starts, they're expected to memorize the music, and obviously that's different than concert band. You don't usually have to memorize your concert band music. And we usually start the very beginning of the year with them right on top of that music. So for them to have that opportunity to work on music before they even walk in the door, or in those first few lessons, especially with the brand new kids I get, the freshmen, to be able to just go, here's your part, and here's how it goes, and notice here you're not playing any flats or any sharps or something, and we can get that straightened out.
So when we were visiting earlier, Mike, you mentioned that I think you said that you already had kids pestering you for the files for the show, and like they just finished stuff and now they want it right away. What kind of culture is evolving with your kids in SmartMusic for this?
Well, the kids start actually in 5th grade in our system with it, and they use it all through middle school, so they're very, very used to using the SmartMusic, and so it's just expected. And the older kids, they know it's coming, that the SmartMusic assignments or files are going to be available. So I was telling you earlier that the older kids already are hitting me up for the SmartMusic files, and I don't even have the music done yet that I've been writing. So I hope to have that done soon.
Now, are you the only one of your colleagues or friends that in your kind of region that's using SmartMusic, or have you run into some other directors that are now starting to do that? Or if not, are they kind of asking you like, what the heck are you doing, and why do your group sound so good?
Well, I'd say it's a wide variety. I know some directors that use it quite a bit. I know some that don't. Usually the ones who don't, it's usually some type of technical or financial problem that's holding them back. But I think they're all interested, and probably less use it for marching band. But I think it would be wise to do that, especially since most of the bands around my area have custom arrangements. So I imagine they could get a SmartMusic file from their arranger.
That's going to be a great segue into talking to Rob, because actually that's what he does. But just a question in the meantime is, were you teaching for a while before you started using SmartMusic? And if so, do you have any comparison anecdotally of how quickly kids learn their music with SmartMusic compared to how they learned it without?
Well, I think certainly all kids have always enjoyed hearing something that they're supposed to perform. I think they find that very valuable. And so SmartMusic does that for them. And I think, before I used any SmartMusic products, maybe I could model it if I could play their instrument well, or sometimes you can find a recording, but the recording's too fast or something, or it's a different arrangement even or something. So it didn't really work as well. But I think the students, I think they really appreciate that they get to hear their exact part.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good segue into maybe showing everybody kind of a typical file, one that you created for your kids. And when we come on the back side of that, wanted to ask you about, I know you discussed about sometimes you make a file for the whole band, sometimes you make it for a section, and sometimes you make it for just a chunk of music that you know is going to need some work. So let's take a look at, this is a file that was done in Finale and then made into SmartMusic. So, Mike, can you just kind of fill us in a little bit how you use these? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so this is the full arrangement of that song, and the kids were able to practice with it. This particular past year, I used it much more in lessons. We have lessons in Iowa, so I see the kids once a week. So we kind of work in lessons. I didn't give a graded assignment this year, but sometimes I do. But then also, I'll break them down by section. Like my trumpets kind of struggled this year, so I made a trumpet one so that whenever the trumpets came in, they could just focus on what their part sounded like. And I did add the drum line in there so they had a beat to follow, and that was good. And then just before this video cuts off, it gets into a really nasty key actually in the piece. And I was thinking I was going to need to just play that little section for some people because it had some hard licks in it. And turned out I had a strong senior class, so we were okay. But that was definitely in the back of my mind, is I might need to just actually take a little section of the music and do that.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, for those of you listening, we're going to really want you to chat in some questions to Mike and, of course, Rob in a second. Mike, could you just tell us how extremely your staff is to put together your marching program that goes all over the country and does all these events? You must have 10, 20 people working on this for you.
No, I'm sorry to say I don't. So I write the music and the drill, and I have, during marching band season, I have an assistant director for marching band season, but she's only there on the weekends and the night rehearsals. She doesn't get to come to my class. And then I have a color guard instructor, but she's only there on nights and weekends. We actually have a color guard class, so I teach the color guard class. And then we have one more middle school director who's a percussionist, and whenever she can, she helps out.
The thing that struck me when we were visiting earlier is that you really don't have a big staff. It's kind of you, a little bit of help, and some hard work and SmartMusic. So let's see if we can get any questions coming in from the people that are checking in here. I think we're a little bit light on people asking questions so far. So if we get some coming in, that'll be great. In the meantime, then, we're going to Mike, have you mute for a while, and let's go here and check with Rob Stein. So Rob, we did a little setup on you earlier about what you've been up to, but take us through, where you began and what you're doing now, and we'll play that files along the way too.
Well, I started getting my bachelor's degree in trumpet performance, emphasis in jazz studies at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. And from there went straight into my graduate degree in music education. I started off with a few years in the East Windsor Regional School District teaching elementary band, which was 5th grade only. And then after that, I was with Clinton Public School, which was a K-8 school. And so I got to start the kids in 4th grade and actually have them all the way through 8th grade, which anyone who's a instrumental teacher knows that, if you're an elementary teacher, you have them for a year or two, then you send them off and hope for the best. And if you're a middle school teacher, you hope that the feeder program is strong enough for your students to come to you well educated and knowing what they need to keep going. But I got to have them for 5 years in a row, which was really a wonderful experience. One of the things I had to deal with teaching there at the K-8 school was, as most of us deal with, our pull-out lessons. So I had one 30-minute lesson per week with each student if they were able to come to the lesson. If not, then obviously it was less time, and a couple weeks would go by if I didn't see them. And in 4th or 5th grade, if you only get, let's say 30 lessons a year and you miss a few of them, you're missing quite a lot. So I also had a jazz band, a few concert bands. I had a 4th grade beginner band, a 5th and 6th grade band, and a 7th and 8th grade band, as well as a jazz band and an electric band and a pep band. With each one of those groups, I had one 20-minute rehearsal a week. So rehearsal time was really minimal. And SmartMusic, I started my 2nd year there after seeing I was exhibiting with my standing O booth at Midwest. And I think, Lee, I was across from you watching you demo the SmartMusic program many times. I got to see it over the weekend, and I immediately got it into my school system as soon as I got back. And I noticed a lot of great benefits from that right away. Of course, all of the method books that we used were already in SmartMusic, so the students were able to latch onto that right away. I wound up writing and arranging most of the concert music myself, because in a small school, the instrumentation was widely varied. Some year I'd have very small woodwinds and large brass, and then vice versa. Or maybe I have one student on a certain instrument with very specific abilities. So I would usually wind up arranging the music myself, and I could easily hop into Finale, make a SmartMusic file out of that, kind of like Mike was talking about, and the students were able to practice it. And from them, I noticed that they really enjoyed performing their instrument more, to be able to see the score on the screen. And especially when you're young, being in band is still cool. And you love the opportunity to play with the full band. When you're in 4th or 5th grade, you hear the full band play for the first time. Their eyes get so wide, it's an incredible experience, and they kind of get overwhelmed. And we don't have a lot of rehearsal opportunities, but with SmartMusic, they can hit the accompaniment button and hear the full band playing, and they can practice along with that. So it's very exciting for them. And overall, there was a ton of improvement in my program. The kids played more. They enjoyed their practicing more. It was a great guided practice for them. So there was a lot of improvement, and I really enjoyed using SmartMusic, all the way through my 5 years there until I started, writing full time this year.
I was going to ask you, Rob, it sounds like to adapt your teaching and what the kids needed when as a teacher, you were writing arrangements. But could you talk a little bit about when you started writing, how did you get into writing custom arrangements? And then along with that, I was wondering, do some of these groups that you write for, they're pretty high power groups, do they have any specific requirements when you write an arrangement for them?
Sure. The arranging side of things I started doing in grad school. I had just a couple bands in New Jersey at that point, but I just kind of started chipping away at it with the goal of hopefully eventually going full time with my writing. I had the opportunity to learn from a lot of great educators in the activity and really apply my knowledge, and had a lot of help along the way. But over time, as business grew, I started writing a lot more. This year I had, like I said, I have 65 bands total this year, about 15 arrangements, and then the rest all have bought pre-composed shows from the website. And I just kind of started 10 years ago and just keep chipping away at the process. you asked a question about custom arrangements, which schools certainly have different requirements. So when I start writing for a school, they fill out a band info sheet, which is basically just as much detail as they can provide about their program. So some might say, like, we have a really killer saxophone section this year. You can write a really hard feature. The trumpets are good, but I don't have too much range. So make sure that there's not too many range difficulties in the book, except for one kid that can play a high C every now and then, or that kind of thing. So I really make sure each show is very, very customized for each individual band. And another thing that I started doing when I got into SmartMusic was including SmartMusic files with my shows. So any one of the shows on my website that you might want to purchase for your group, which is ready for immediate delivery with everything you need, also comes with SmartMusic files included in the purchase price. And schools that do custom arrangements typically also ask for SmartMusic files. I think I only have one or two that haven't been able to implement SmartMusic, but all the rest use it. So when I'm done writing the show, I will send them a SmartMusic file with the show, and also a finale file, so that if they wind up making any edits on their own, they can make their own updated SmartMusic files.
This ties into one of the questions that came in. One of them is, are there any plans to start including marching band music as part of the SmartMusic library? And that one, I'll just take a stab at. The quick answer is, we really do the literature by request and by publisher and by contracts with them. And it takes a little bit of doing to kind of agree on what the literature is going to be. And so one way you could help that out is to be really aggressive and get your friends in the mix too. And let's see if I can put this on screen here. And what I'm doing is going into the new SmartMusic, because that's where I just want to give you a heads up here. If you go to the help menu in new SmartMusic, by the way, new SmartMusic, when you get up and going, we'll show you that at the end here. If you click on help menu, that takes you to a really killer page where all these getting started topics are. And then over on the right side under community is feature requests. And when you click on that, then you could add as a feature, you could be asking for something that you wanted. It's a great place to put that in. So we really, I think we'll be doing a lot of concert band and solos and other literature like that. But to get us going on the marching band, that's what I'd recommend, is go to SmartMusic and do those feature requests. Giovanna, do you have any other questions that have come in at this time?
Yeah, let's see. There's a couple other questions. So I think that this is a question for either one of you, Rob or Michael. Have you scanned any parts into Finale using SmartMusic, is what somebody is asking. And then how do you convert a Finale file to a SmartMusic file? A couple technical questions there that either one of you can answer if you want, or maybe Leo or I could.
Well, I could probably answer the conversion. It's pretty easy from Finale. It's just an export, and it says to a SmartMusic file. It asks you a couple questions about how you want to do that. And Lee gave me some really good advice recently, that make sure that when you do it, that you've chosen the soft synth. Is that the right term, Lee?
Yeah.
The soft synth sounds for the instruments.
Yeah, it depends on what version. I think Mike was using a version a little bit back a couple steps, and over the last couple times in Finale, the ability to make SmartMusic files has changed from just SmartMusic to Garrison sound. So you have to decide, what version of Finale you're on. So I guess right now you're seeing just a single piece of music, but like what Mike was saying is, in the file menu, if you go to export, you can send this out as a SmartMusic file. And there's about 3 steps once you do that, and you're ready to. That's in the classic SmartMusic, and that's what Mike and Rob have been doing for quite a while. So if you're using classic SmartMusic, you would do that through Finale. However, in the new SmartMusic, we won't get too deep into it, but you can export out of Finale or any other notation program as a music XML file. And music XML is the way that parts and scores are made in new SmartMusic. So it doesn't matter if you're on classic or new, you can make your SmartMusic content really quickly. Any other questions, Giovanna?
No, I think that covers all the questions that we've received so far.
Rob, is there anything else that we should add about what you're doing? I want to play this file for you, New Land, and while that's going, maybe you can kind of see if there's anything else you want to think about here.
Sure. Yeah, the file you're about to play is from a show called A New Land, and this is another one that was already finished before I got into smart music, but it was really pretty simple. I am a Sibelius user by nature when I write, but fortunately, smart music has really made it easy for me to be able to access Finale and make smart music files. So it was actually pretty simple for me to make an XML file from Sibelius, import that into Finale, quickly assign my soft synth sounds, and then make a full smart music file out of this entire show. So it really, once I got used to the process, as you and Mike were talking about, really didn't take me very long to be able to start making full smart music files. So oftentimes, a typical situation will be a director will purchase a show from me in anywhere from February all the way through June. And as soon as they do, they get all of the PDFs for the whole show and the samples and everything, as well as the smart music files. So right away, they can send students. So I think this looks like the alto sax part. So if they were looking at this part right here, the band director would email it to all the kids. They could practice their part. They'll hear the full show as you're about to play it, and see their music as they go along. So it's just super helpful.
Okay, we'll just play this, and here we go. So that's a pretty short excerpt of your title there, and just want to clarify, Rob did that using Sibelius and sent it out as music XML. So in the new Smart Music, Rob could skip that part of running it through Finale and just go straight from Sibelius, music XML, Smart Music. And whereas Mike would just export it straight out of Finale, music XML, Smart Music. So the process is really easy there. And let me just hit a few more slides. I want to be careful that we get into some other topics here that will tie things together. Remind, got a question or comment, please send it to Giovanna. And Giovanna, do you have anything gathered up at this point?
We had one question, someone asking what kind of feedback does Smart Music provide. So I answered that Smart Music records the student every time they play along with the software, so the student can hear themselves. And it also provides visual feedback in the form of red and green notes. So when they play the right note or rhythm, the notes will turn green. And if they make mistakes in both pitch and rhythm, the notes will turn red. So they can combine that oral with the visual feedback and then do a retake and practice and get better that way.
So one of the things that I think Mike alluded to was that sometimes he does use the red and green notes and use the scores. Other times the file is for reference and the practice, but not as a testing assignment. So you kind of choose how you want to do that. That's really up to the director on that. I do want to mention that in the new Smart Music, which I know I'm bringing up quite a bit here because that's really been an awesome way to think about next year, is that you can start totally free and kick the tires, make classes, add students, add teachers with content. And if you do that and sign up for a Teach Free account just by going, I'll back up one screen here, smartmusic.com, and then you click on that Educator Start Free button, that opens up this page. And if you don't type in marching band webinar there in the bottom, you would be set up with a Teach Free account and have all the possibilities of creating classes, but you would only have some sample files. If you type in marching band webinar, our sales department will give you full access to all the content for about 30 days. so you can test out all the literature. So that would really be a good thing to check out, and no cost for that. Classic Smart Music's been around for 15 or more years, and the Teach Free now and the Teach programs are in place, and you can get 50 students and 3 teachers going for $3.99, and then you can add students and teachers beyond that at the same prorated rate. So it's a very classroom-based pricing, and Joanne and I aren't in that sales department, but we want to let you know that if you contact our sales team, they give you some options and get that discussion going. That Giovanna and I do work on a lot is the training area. And in that, we have a pretty cool thing for you, I believe. SmartMusic University has 3 levels of courses, and the Smart Music courses, both on classic and on new. Level 1 is all about the content. Level 2 is all about the grade book and assignments and things like that, classes. Level 3 is how to make your own content, whether you're in classic or in new. We've made those totally free, and you can get 3 clock hours and a certificate by going through those. So that's a good tool for people as well. We do in-person training and we do virtual training, kind of like our series now. And those are just options. This past couple of months, every week we've been doing a webinar, and it's on our Smart Music YouTube channel. Here are the topics we've done: get kids to practice and turbocharge the results, a masterclass with Bob Phillips, a lot of good information about how kids should practice and why they should do it that way. Streamlining your end of your auditions that Giovanna did. Why switch to the new Smart Music? That gives you a really good look at those features. Then we had a couple of power users on new Smart Music tips and tricks of what they were doing. Dean Sorensen is a jazz instructor, performer, and composer, and he did a really great session on tools for jazz rehearsals. Last week we had a couple of New York teachers use Smart Music and show how they differentiate instruction based on the feedback they get from Smart Music. And it sounds technical, but the way they put it out there, it's really helped their program. And then, of course, this will appear in that same list, the Smart Music and Marching Band. Mike, let's put you on screen. Any things that maybe as we're going through here you'd like to add to the session?
Well, I think it's really great that Rob includes those Smart Music files with the band arrangements that he does. And I would suggest, that's a great way for you to get your kids to be able to practice and learn, and even like he mentioned, sometimes you need to tweak things. You can learn if the kids, there's just something that's just not going to work, and you can discover it in that time and realize maybe you need to simplify or change a range or simplify a rhythm or something.
We have a question that came up, and I just want to read it and see if you guys have some insight on it. And it is, how do you know which student is making the recording, trying to avoid cheating? So I answer that, every student has an account and they enroll in your class, so you know who they are. And then in my particular teaching experience, we were on the honor system, and I never had problems with cheating. But I know that may be a concern in certain cases, or especially if you have a very large program, 300 kids might be a little bit difficult to differentiate the playing of one versus the other. So do you guys have an experience that speaks to that question? What do you do to avoid cheating?
Well, a lot of my kids end up doing it at school, so I actually see them do it. But for me, I have older students, and in 90% of the cases, they sort of have a voice when they play, and I can tell who's playing. I'm sure with younger kids that becomes much more difficult.
Just to hit on that, Mike, as someone who used Smart Music with 4th through 8th graders, I also really didn't have an issue with that. As Giovanna mentioned, every student has an account. So when I would log on to a computer or iPad or even on my iPhone, there's a Smart Music app. I could actually, be sitting on my couch if I wanted to and just check in on my assignments on my phone and listen to my kids playing. You can see easily their name in their account that they need a password to access every time they log on. So I guess the only way they would cheat is if, like, one kid went to another kid's house and then played for the microphone for the other student, which would be quite a lot of effort to go through. But even if they got that far, as Mike mentioned, you pretty much, the only reason a kid would probably do that is if they were really having trouble. And if you had a student who you knew, as Mike said, every student kind of has their own voice, even in elementary school, so if you have a student who's having a hard time on the instrument and all of a sudden they can play the whole song perfectly, you pretty much know, but I've never had that happen personally.
Yeah, this is Lee again. It's a great question, and what I've experienced over the last 14 years in clinics and talking to educators is that that's a great question that usually comes from teachers that aren't using SmartMusic with their students. Once they start using it with their students, then they say what Mike and Rob are saying. Well, yeah, I know the kids, I know what they sound like, and it really has not been an issue. You might get a rare one, and then you have to see if a middle school student can actually keep the secret, which is challenging. But it really hasn't been a big deal. There was a question here: have you scanned any parts in the finale to use in SmartMusic? I just want to add a couple things. Just you're aware that if you're using Finale, earlier versions than Finale 25, that did have a scanning capability. You could scan, save it as a TIFF file, bring it in, clean it up, and use it. Then in Finale version 25, which is the current one, we decided that technology was not going to be in Finale. And what is happening now is there are some apps. It's pretty amazing. And I've found a few that for your iPhone where you can just take a picture of a piece of music and send it out as music and then clean it up. Having said that, I really want to emphasize the fact that Make Music pays royalties to every publisher for every chart. Anytime someone clicks on a SmartMusic file that we have in our program, then we are working with the publishers and paying those kind of royalties. So be really careful that as a practice tool, this is awesome, but make sure that you're treating all those publishing and royalty things properly. It's a slippery slope, as you all know. I think I gave Mike an opportunity to say a couple last things. Rob, anything else you want to throw in the mix here? Let's see.
Yeah, sure. One thing that I've noticed, because I did start asking my directors if SmartMusic was helpful to them, receiving the SmartMusic files. And something I've noticed from all of them, or a common comment, I should say, is that obviously the individual students can perform better because they have a better practice tool and they understand their part better. So the individual, from like a competitive perspective, the IA, individual analysis music scores always go up. So the field music judge, the guy who's on the judge who's on the field, really getting close to the students, hearing the individual sounds, and scores the band based on the individual performance, those scores go up. And when those scores go up, all of the captions tend to increase, because when the individual sounds better, the section sounds better. So as individual music scores increase, the ensemble music score will increase. When the ensemble music score increases and the ensemble performs better, the general effect music caption will always improve, because those moments, those special impact moments, or transitional moments, or any part in the show comes across more. The audience and the judges can feel the emotion, they can feel the thematic approach and what the show is trying to convey more. And in the circuits where there's a visual and a music effect score, the visual score will even go up, because when you see something and then you hear great sounds that go along with it, that helps create the effect, versus if you see something great but the sound is not there to help convey that, it won't come across as strongly. So when the individual performs better, all aspects of the show improve. And aside from a competitive aspect, the program improves. So that, again, the SmartMusic files have been a helpful tool for the schools that wish to utilize it. And Lee, you're kind enough to put my website up. So as you see all those shows scrolling along, and if Lee would maybe like click on the compositions page, and you'll be able to see all of the compositions that are ready for immediate delivery on the website. Each one of those comes with a SmartMusic file ready to go. So it's just been a helpful tool. And the new shows that are coming out, I'll have about 6 new ones coming out for next year. We'll all have SmartMusic files with it for the new version. So there's a lot of exciting stuff there.
Well, so thanks to both you guys, and of course Giovanna, for keeping us on track here. The one thing I wanted to to me, it's an interesting comparison because I was more in Mike's world where it was just a couple of us trying to keep up with the big schools. And on the other side of the spectrum here, when I look at Rob's page here, you have Rob, and then you have a percussion person, another percussion, Adam and percussion, and you have all these staff options that kind of put together resources for schools and for writing and for drill. And so whether you're in a small school setting or you have the ability to kind of reach out and grab all these tools, it seems like SmartMusic is sort of in the middle of the process and helping out. Giovanna, I'm going to swing back to you for one last call for any questions, and then we'll put a couple things on the screen. So there's a action item. Thank especially Mike and Rob for take some time to give us some comments today, and reference everybody that the smartmusic.com is where you go to get that free courses and system requirements. If you are in a situation where you think I got to get some prices, I got to look at stuff, then it's just an email to sales@makemusic.com. So any last questions, Giovanna, that might have come around?
Nothing else has come in.
Okay. Mike, thank you for joining in today, and keep on battling the big guys with working all the time. And Rob, I think you're one of the few people I know that started out teaching fourth graders and now is writing shows for some of the top groups in the country, and that's quite a alpha and omega of the marching world too. So appreciate that. So okay, if there's nothing else, thank you so much for tuning in. And again, the resources, smartmusic.com, be a great place to start.
All right. Thank you, everyone.